Hmm.
So they're playing their reunion show and it had rained, so there were puddles in the basement, and the crowd and the band started getting electrocuted.
Oh my
So
God.
they had to turn it off because we were all getting shocked by standing on the floor.
The internet wants you to know a little about everything,
A headline here, a trending topic there,
just enough to have an opinion.
but never enough to understand.
This is You Know Too Much.
A show about the opposite.
The people who go all the way down the rabbit hole,
The collector,
the overthinker.
the obsessive.
This is You Know Too Much.
Hi, I'm Tax. I know way too much about Emocore.
It's good because we know nothing about Emocore. So
I know
you-
nothing.
That's good. You
About
should keep it that way. Keep it that way.
No,
Not to be a not to be a gatekeeper.
no, we
but,
want
you
to
know.
occupy your mind for the next 15 to 30 minutes. and,
Okay.
understand this passion of yours. So
Okay.
I guess the first question is, what is emo core? And then how'd you get into it?
It was okay. So that's kind of two questions in one. It was never meant to be a thing. It was a sort of an offshoot of the hardcore scene, primarily in DC. But as Eva knows, there was a big hardcore scene in Boston as well, and in New York. And there was a lot of tough guy stuff. So in the summer of 1985, all the DC bands broke up and we're like, we're tired of skinheads at the shows. We're tired of fights. We're tired of misogyny. And so they started these different sounding bands that were a little more introspective, if you will, a little more thoughtful, less overtly like scene politics and all of that, and also combined a little bit of melody with sort of the hardcore aggression that you might think of when you hear the word hardcore. But it was
Like
originally, what's that? Go ahead.
hardcore, but not hardcore.
Yeah, so the original use of the term was actually like a derisive term. So there was this fanzine called Flipside, and it was a punk rock and skateboarding fanzine magazine that was put out. And when these bands came out, Embrace and Rites of Spring being like the primary sort of bands in that genre, which was never meant to be a genre. But those two bands actually eventually became Fugazi. So you guys do know people in those bands, or at least the offshoots of those bands. Anyway, the guy that put out Flipside coined it emocore because it was slowed down. It was a little bit more introspective, poetic, a little bit just more artistic than the prior renditions those bands had been putting out. So it was meant as a derogatory comment on these bands that he didn't like that they were slowing down, they weren't as violent,
Too many
and
feelings.
so too many feelings. Too many feelings. Again, it was never meant to be a genre. It was more an offshoot of hardcore. But once it got coined as a genre, then there were a million sort of not copycats, but other more artistic bands that kind of got lumped into that category.
And how'd you get into it?
How did I get into it? Well, I was into the original bands. I was a little bit younger than the kids in the bands, but I had the pleasure, I guess, of being introduced to skateboarding by kids way older than me, and they were into, all kinds of music that I shouldn't have been exposed to at the age of 12. But I was very passionate about Minor Threat, which is like, the original DC hardcore band, Bad Brains. So I was already kind of plugged in. And also, as Eva knows, there's a legendary record store, Newbury Comics in Boston, that eventually I got to work for. But they had like an amazing punk rock selection. So anything that had to do with DC hardcore, DC punk rock, I was going to get. But that wave of records really just, I don't know, spoke to me in a different way. What I didn't like about Boston and New York hardcore was the tough guy stuff. It was a bunch of broy guys with shaved heads, like beating people up, and that's just it's not my vibe. So this very much spoke to me in a different way. But because it was like built out of bands that I had loved previously, I sort of lent into it.
We need to see the family tree of the Genesis.
Yeah, I need to make an org chart. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how deep do you go? I mean, you're still super into it. And like,
Yes.
what's something that only if somebody else is super deep into it that they would know about as well?
A band called Portraits of Past, which was part of the second wave, early 90s, California. They made a little more chaotic sound on sort of what was coined emo. Most of these bands broke up before anyone could go to a show.
Stop it.
And they would release like 1 7 inch. So that's like another big like passion is like people go
It doesn't
dig in the
exist.
crates. to find that like one record of that one band that broke up when they were in high school. And anyway, so
Where's
oh,
your
sorry.
special delivery? We want to see it.
Okay, hold on. It's in my backpack. All right.
All right. With your Jawbreaker t-shirt. Love it.
Yeah, that's connected.
Yeah.
Jawbreaker came more out of like the street punk scene, but as they got more sort of melodic, they got kind of lumped into like the emo core scene, but they were not part of that.
I love that.
You mentioned Newbury Comics, which
Yes.
I'd like to just mention. The original Newbury Comics was below the first Barbarian Group office.
Oh, really?
Oh, look at that.
Street,
Wow.
circa 2004.
So just got this in the mail. But what's
Beautiful.
significant about this is that Portraits of Past, again, people got into them before, like after they were even a band, like they had already broken up. In the last few years, they've done like all these surprise reunion shows. As part of that, they covered a Rites of Spring song, which is the original like DC emo band, Rites of Spring. It's Guy Picciotto from Fugazi. They covered their most famous song, and this is the pressing of them covering that song, which was just iconic that they even had the gall to cover such a song of that status in the genre.
I mean, it's almost like a treasure hunt in a lot of ways.
Yes, more than the music, I will say. I love all the music, but there are lots of records I have that I haven't even listened to because I'm afraid to open them.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Like I don't want to unseal them.
Yeah.
But the treasure hunt is a huge part of it. Eva, I don't know if you remember Mystery Train records, but the Mystery Train in Amherst, for some reason, was like a treasure trove of abandoned emo records that no one knew what they had. So I would go there and like dig in the crates and come out with a bunch of gems that they shouldn't have been selling for like $2, you know?
Amazing. Are the kids making emo core these days?
Great.
Well,
Genuine-
Genuine question.
there's even like a subgenre of hip hop called emo hop, which is, yeah. Yeah.
Emo?
So like,
The music.
well, it got
they need
the
to just pipe into this episode.
right. But over time, as it got sort of more broad appeal, it became about that, about like sad breakup stuff. And so that bled its way into other genres like hip hop. So
many feels.
so I don't know if the kids are still making some like offshoot versions, if you will, of like the OG stuff. But I think they've kind of melded it as they do into their own expression, which is great, which is how it started anyway. So,
when you listen to emo core, like what is that feeling that you get?
well, it's like the perfect combination of the aggression and energy of like hardcore and like skate punk, but without the toughness or machismo that those older bands came with, right? And so it's a nice combination of both like free jazz or like poetry. I don't know. It's like a different it's a different angsty expression that has nothing to do with being aggressive.
Okay. What is emo core memory or artifact that you have that like you're most proud of? Like you could mention it to any other deep fan and they'd be like, that's dope.
Okay. The memory that I have related to Portraits of the Past, they played shows in 2008. They did one at Death by Audio. It had dirt floors.
Mm-hmm.
It was barely a venue.
Yeah.
But the night before, they played a secret rehearsal show for the show. And because I had the right nerdy friends, I got to go to that. Just was a crappy old dive bar. And they had very bad electrical. So they're playing their reunion show and it had rained. So there were puddles in the basement. And the crowd and the band started getting electrocuted.
Oh my God.
So they had to turn it off because we were all getting shocked by standing on the floor. So that's like my story that I could tell. But the artifact I have is the Orchid Jerome's Dream split 10-inch that is shaped like a skull that I got at Newbury Comics, but people like on eBay and on Discogs hunt after that. And I just happened to get it because I was at work and it came out and I knew the kids in Orchid. So I was like, I'm going to buy this. Orchid Jerome's Dream is the second tier to the record, the Moss Icon Silver Bearing split, which has handwritten liner notes. There were only so many pressed because they had to handwrite the liner notes on translucent paper. Yeah. Part of what sort of brought me into the genre as well was like the craftsmanship, not just a document of the music. It was like an artifact that the bands were like hand creating. There's another 7-inch by Ordination of Aaron, which every copy of the 7-inch has a different hand picked fall leaf that has fallen off a tree that they put packaging tape over the top.
Oh my God.
So I've got two with two different leaves, but like people hunt down like the different covers with the different leaves. Yeah.
So
It's a
crafty.
yeah, very crafty.
I get the vibe.
It's like make it yourself. Yeah, do it yourself kind of vibe. It's like we're gonna book a basement show. We're gonna do the flyer ourselves. We're gonna print our own t-shirts. We're gonna make our own liner notes. It's gonna sound like shit, and that's part of the appeal.
And we'll be right back after this.
We spotted consumers are drinking less, but still want the ritual of a great cocktail. That's why Blind Tiger Spirit-Free Cocktails preserves that ritual without the spirit. Find us at blindtigerspiritfree.com.
Madison built only olive because every chili crisp on the shelf was made with seed oils and additives. Now, it's in 3 flavors made with 100% olive oil. Buy now at eatonlyolive.com.
And now, back to the show.
So Ian MacKaye, you guys probably all know Ian MacKaye, the founder of Discord Records. He was like the singer of Minor Threat. He was in one of the first bands that was coined emo. It was called Embrace. And you could find the video on YouTube, and he was like, I've heard we're called Emocore. I think that's caca. Because wasn't all hardcore emotional to begin with? There's something like earnest and angsty from the basement shows up. That's kind of the spirit of the scene.
Oh, I love it.
feel that. I love that. If I were to get into emo core today, what do you think, what album or what track do you think I should be introduced to?
So for the origin story, you have to start with Rites of Spring. The track is For Want Of.
Okay.
That's also from that same crop of 1985. They called it Revolution Summer. All the hardcore bands in DC broke up and reformed with different members in different configurations.
Yeah.
Rites of Spring was probably the most like passionate, insane, based on the live shows I've been able to see on YouTube, because obviously I was 9 at the time, so I wasn't going to shows in DC. Just incendiary live show, super passionate, crazy stage presence. So For Want Of by Rites of Spring, but the song and the record that made the genre more widespread was a band called Sunny Day Real Estate, and they were out of Seattle.
Right? I feel like that band is still touring.
They're still touring. They're, just like other emo core bands, they broke up when they got famous, and then when they got legendary, they formed back together because I don't know, they can sell tickets and records and all that stuff, which I get, I respect. You got to do it. You got to do it. But they were on Sub Pop, which was like a big label out of Seattle.
Okay.
But Sunny Day Real Estate had a very unique sound. It almost sounds like a mixture of like OG emo core with like a little bit of like hair metal. Like it has like a little bit of metal sheen, and it has very like dramatic songwriting, very melancholic, and they were sort of the ones that made the genre super popular, and then you have a million copycats after that. So you'd have to listen to 7 by Sunny Day Real Estate, which I also have on green vinyl, if you ever want to listen in person.
I feel like we're gonna
just
need
so you know.
photos of all of these things.
Yeah, I'm down. I selected my selects, so I've got them ready for documentation. Yeah.
Love it. So I have another question. What am I wearing? What am I going to be wearing when I go to this? Everyone's welcome. There's no uniform.
That was the idea, was like anyone can show up, you can be a dork. But like, of course, over time that evolved. If you go into the late 90s, early 2000s, everyone had like this swoopy like MySpace hair, and like everything was black, like black skinny jeans, black t-shirts. But that was never the intent. It was meant to be a more welcoming space, particularly for women, because like the original hardcore scene was like not a great place to go if you're a lady. Yeah, the girls would have to stand in the back and hold the jackets of the guys in the pit, like dumb shit like that. So this was meant to be a more welcoming space. Put a pair of these glasses on and you will be,
so I just
and like just like a fake white pen. I don't know.
I still look like an art director in advertising. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. See, we've gone everywhere. Yeah.
Design enthusiast.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Mango loves emo core.
I can tell.
All cats like emo core.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Roger does. My cat, he only likes cat TV. I don't think he likes any of the music I play. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
In your heyday, what was your uniform?
In my heyday, I'd like to think my heyday is still coming, but that's okay. Yeah.
You have it.
No, but yeah, I never had the black swoopy hair. I did have skinny jeans. I did dye my hair black once. I had the choker. I had the choker was a good look. It was a hot look for a long time. Like
Yes. Oh my
Krishna
God.
beads, but like
Oh my
very tight,
gosh.
little tiny plugs. I'd wear a sweater to the show.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Oh
Definitely
yeah, dude.
the
Stick.
documentation of this. We
Yeah,
definitely.
there is a photo of my failed emo band in college where I'm like singing and I have like a sweater just like yours, but with my tight chokers and little plugs. I've got like a buzz cut, no eyeliner, no nail paint,
Okay.
you know, no swoopiness.
Why does emo core matter? Like, as in, like, in the sense of like, what does it bring to us today? Why has it still, like, resisted the dawn of time? Like, why do we still have it? What does it mean to us? What do you want it, what do you want to share with the world about it?
Okay, again, I'm not the governor of emo core,
I don't
but
know. It sounds like you
I
sort of are.
think
you know too much about it.
Yeah, you definitely.
That's true. I know way too much about it, and I do have a lot of passion for it. But what I do like about it is that it did not have to look a certain way. You didn't have to be a straight white guy to be in the band. There were tons of women in the scene. It also encompassed a wide variety of sort of underground music that was like combined and recombined in new ways. It had a very, I don't know, artistic and endless sort of charter, if you will. This was sort of a more open, welcoming space and scene. It really felt like art forward as opposed to sort of musical politics forward. And I think like there's still space for that. And now that we can still be old and be into it, like up, you'd have to grow out of your punk rock phase and like get a job as a salesman or something.
Mhm.
But a lot of the bands that are even older than me are getting back together and still playing shows, and it's incredible. So
I love that it brings you so much joy, and you
it
feel like
does.
it's a community, whether you know the person that's also into it or not. It's just like such
Totally.
a community, and it also reverberates all that you would want in a community: joy, belonging,
Yes.
but still having individuality.
Yep.
That's awesome. I love hearing about that. Well, on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for being here with us and knowing too much about emo core and sharing it with us. And now I know just a little bit more about it.
That's all for today's episode of You Know Too Much, a podcast brought to you by Mavenverse, where brands and communities connect.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who would love it. Explore more at youknowtoomuch.media.
Follow us on Instagram and YouTube to keep the obsession going.
There you go. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks.
All right, guys.